Welcome to Redtastic. Story 1. I, 28 male, have been with my girlfriend, 25 female, for a little over a year now. I bought a house for myself in the first few weeks of our relationship. She used to come over a lot, and it just made sense for her to move in after 2 months. We've been living together for 7 months, and my girlfriend contributes nothing financially, nor does she work. Something I found out after she had moved in. A few months of doing everything but having a freeloader reap from my hard work weighed on me, and I decided to say something. I prepared my speech and figured I would tell her at the end of the work week, so she had the weekend to move out while I could help her out. The day rolled around to tell her, and before I could say anything, she hit me with her own bad news. She said that her grandmother had suffered a stroke and her family had asked her to care for her grandmother since she wasn't working at the moment. Her family is not well off and can't afford a nurse, so she was the only logical option. Also, she needed to go to her grandmother immediately. It was a bit of an emotional conversation, with her crying and reminiscing over things she had done with her grandmother before. There was no way I could tell her about moving out then. So, I sympathized with her over the sad, abrupt turn of events and tried to comfort her, since I knew her grandmother lived so far away. I figured she would just move in with her grandmother, and I didn't have to look like the bad guy for kicking her out when her family was already struggling a lot. I told my girlfriend to take her time caring for her grandmother, hoping to be rid of her, and I let her know that I would be a phone call away if she needed help. I even offered to help her pack and drive her to the bus station, but she said she would figure it all out. About 4 days after that conversation, I came home to find her grandmother in my extra bedroom. It's a 4-bedroomed house and I had already set up the rest as I wanted them. This room was supposed to be my flex space. The house already smelled like medicine and heavy disinfectant. I was very mad. I hadn't expected it, nor had my girlfriend had the courtesy to discuss it with me first. I found my girlfriend and just lost it. I told her that what she had done was very selfish and entitled. It wasn't even her house. Then she said, rather calmly and unbothered, that she had nowhere to put her grandmother. My house was in a central location to the hospital and any emergency centers. It was better than looking after her grandmother in the middle of nowhere. Plus, the rest of her family lived so far from town or had small apartments and were in no position to help. While I could understand where she was coming from, I told her that it wasn't my problem since we hadn't even discussed this option. So, I asked her to find another place with her grandmother or figure out how to get medical care for her in her own house. In response, my girlfriend said that she would start paying for some of the expenses since her family was giving her some allowance to take care of her grandmother. She also added that taking care of her grandmother wouldn't affect my day-to-day living. She begged and manipulated and guilt-tripped me till I finally gave in. However, once that was settled, her family started using my house as a pit stop. They were in and out of my house at awkward hours under the guise of seeing their grandma. They would come in and move my furniture around to make room for them to sleep, empty my fridge and never bother to refill it, use some of my gadgets and accessories without permission, and so much more. I tried talking to my girlfriend about it, but she kept on saying that I was just biased about the whole thing. I finally got fed up with the whole drama, especially since my girlfriend wasn't even contributing like she had claimed she would. So I broke up with her and demanded she leave my house immediately. Her family ganged up against me when they heard. They insisted that if the roles were reversed, my girlfriend would never treat me like that. It's not like they had asked me to pay for medical care or the transport bills. They ignored that they had been eating my food and sleeping rent-free in my house. They said that they didn't need my money, but my girlfriend was entitled to a bit of the house, since she had helped decorate it with things I had bought and had taken care of it, though she was hardly bothered to do any chores around. Now they're insisting they won't leave my house. What do I even do in this situation? Update. I told my ex-girlfriend and her family that I didn't owe them any responsibility on that front, especially since I no longer had a relationship with their daughter, sister, or relative. I also let them know that their daughter had done nothing but use me since she met me. I told them some of the things she had done and asked if they would let her be treated like that if the roles were reversed. They had the good sense to look embarrassed. I came clean about wanting to break up with her earlier, but was waylaid by the news of their grandmother. Then I asked them to politely move out or I would be forced to resort to legal action. They weren't happy with that news. The rest of her family shouted at me and called me names. My ex, though, must have realized that there was no working this out. She packed up her things and left her family, including the grandmother she was supposedly taking care of, behind in the dead of night. Once they found out, they also followed suit. I haven't heard from any of them in days, so I don't know how they are faring. But at least I have my space back to myself and I couldn't be happier. You're not the a-hole, OP. Your ex-girlfriend should have talked to you first before moving her grandmother in. She isn't paying rent, and even if she was, it still isn't her house. It's yours. To make things worse, her family turned your home into a place you don't even feel comfortable in anymore. Understandably, you want them gone. They had no right to guilt-trip you for making that decision. Enjoy your space and be careful with that next person you let into your life. Story 2. Bit of background. My grandmother has been ill for many years. When she was younger, up to her early 70s, she was able to live on her own property with minimal assistance from my mother and I. However, when she hit her late 70s, her condition began to necessitate around-the-clock medical care. So she moved into an extended care facility, and I moved into her property to handle upkeep, around 2 acres, and take care of her animals. 1 indoor dog and 1 indoor cat, officially. I should also mention that my grandma has always been an animal lover. She feeds stray cats, she feeds squirrels, she feeds hummingbirds. Because of this, there are several neighborhood strays that hang around expecting food. I don't mind them because, honestly, putting a bowl of dry cat food and water outside for them twice a day takes no effort for me. And I'm glad they are getting food. Where I have a problem is with one cat in particular. He's not a stray. He's a neighborhood cat my grandma would feed sometimes. I know the neighbor he belongs to. In one of my conversations with this lady, she admitted that he used to be an indoor cat, but she started keeping him outside because he was mean to their new puppy. Well, he's also mean to the stray cats around the property, eating their food and starting fights. He spends 23 hours a day lounging around the property as if he belongs to me. It's worth noting that he is a sweetheart to me and the dog. He's just mean to the other cats. I've called the lady and told her to come get her cat on several occasions. She gives me attitude but usually obliges. At one point in the last month, he was sick with something, and when I told her she needed to take him to the vet, she threw a fit that she would have to spend money and then try to claim that it would be me who takes him in and pays. Because he's practically my cat, and it's your grandma's fault for stealing him from me. There's no denying that my grandma's propensity for feeding cats is what made him attached to the property. But I'm sure it's just as much a result of neglect on his owner's part. I'm not really an animal guy, but I'm trying my best. I just can't keep caring for this cat. I understand it isn't his fault, and his owner is a shitty person, but he's creating too many problems for me. Am I the a-hole thinking this cat shouldn't be my responsibility? Would I be the a-hole if I attempted to get this cat removed from his owner's care and maybe rehomed? And is that something that is even possible? Not the a-hole OP. You're not responsible for the cat. You are already doing so much as a person. Your neighbor shouldn't have a pet he can't take care of. It's not your fault. I think it's very possible to get the cat rehomed. Try and do some research on how. Thank you for taking care of the other stray animals. Now for some comments. Not the a-hole. This cat isn't your responsibility. It is your neighbor's legal responsibility and she knows it. If the cat were to do any damage to your pets, she would be liable for those damages. As for wanting to get the cat rehomed, it's admirable, but not entirely within your control. I would need more information before I could tell you what's possible legally. Not the a-hole. To answer the question in your title, yes, the cat started coming to your house because you and your grandmother fed it. But it doesn't sound like the owners took good care of it. And just because you feed it doesn't mean you can afford all the other care a cat needs, especially if it doesn't get along with other animals. If you think that her not taking the cat to the vet amounts to animal cruelty, then you can report her. But I wouldn't get more involved than that. Not the a-hole. Just because they don't feed it doesn't make it your cat. So, as far as I know, if you live in the US, you basically have two options. 1. Report to the neighbor for animal neglect. 2. Turn the cat over to animal control whenever she trespasses in your yard. Neither one is ideal. You don't know if what the neighbor is doing strictly qualifies as neglect to the extent that the cat will be removed from her care. And sending the cat over to animal control likely means that it will be handed over to a shelter. However, assuming your neighbor cares about the cat and is just a lazy cheapskate, the threat playing hardball might get you somewhere. Ordinary people become much more agreeable when you make sure there are consequences to blowing you off. Outline in no uncertain terms exactly what you're going to do if she doesn't take care of her cat until you get it through her head that it's going to be a massive headache for her to deal with.